After Kirk's killing suspect joke that his doppelganger did it. Oh my God. I feel like they're just like, all of this stuff is designed to make people more crazy, it seems like. I don't know. Yeah, Marco Rubio wants to take away American citizens' passports for criticizing Israel, which is crazy. Anyway, do we have a blast off or not? We do. Okay, let's take a look at this one. Grok got censored for telling the truth. That's not surprising. Elon uses both Twitter and also Grok as his like personal propaganda faucet in ways that like other billionaires at least don't attempt to do so publicly. Right? Where it's so transparent, it's so flagrant the way he does this, like it's annoying because like with other billionaires, like at least they have the decency to purchase like the Washington Post, right? At least they have the decency to purchase the Washington Post, and then like whenever they add in editorial control, they're not so aggressive about said editorial controls, right? Where like they won't be like so overt with their control over it. Elon will literally be like, I want Grok to be more racist. I want Grok to be more white supremacist. I'm going to do that now. Like he basically will openly say like, no, this is my platform. I bought it for propaganda. And if you don't like it, you can fuck off. Like I'm going to use it. I'm going to use it in whichever way I want to. I'm going to turn up the Nazi dial. I'm having a bad day today. I want more Nazis to be pumping on the timeline. And then he'll just go, he'll tweak it. And then that's all you see. It is so alarming that we are at the mercy of perhaps one of the most thin-skinned billionaires on the planet. Viral TikTok, you're mentioned.
Guys, people like Dean Withers were crying over Charlie Kirk's death.
I think I saw this one.
They were friends. I remember one time on Hasan's stream, he brought up how like Charlie Kirk asked Hasan in person to hang out. Like this shit was a joke to him, and Hasan said no because this shit is real life and he doesn't fuck with Charlie Kirk. Also, guys, you remember that like sex tape between Destiny and Nick Fuentes? Destiny was giving Nick Fuentes head or some shit. Or even like how Destiny and Nick Fuentes be hanging out. All these establishment politics white boys hang out with each other behind scenes, and they hang out with shitty white supremacist shitty people. That's why when stuff like this comes out, everybody's buddy, everybody's crying. It's because they were all homies behind the scenes. But luckily my GOAT Hasan, he ain't play like that. That's my GOAT.
What is that real? What do you mean? Which one? Which part of this? I don't know. Look, I'm gonna be honest. I don't know if like Dean and Charlie Kirk were friendly or whatever. I don't really know Dean that well, but I wouldn't assume that they were friends. But a lot of the people online, a lot of the people that do like debates in general, no matter how crazy their political differences are, do actually see it as like theater for the most part. Oh, did Nick really give D head? I don't know. He leaned into that initially, so probably not. I genuinely don't know. We don't know if he was sucking off Fuentes or not. It was weird when it first came out because he like didn't deny it, but then maybe he was doing it because he wanted to like distract people away from the fact that it was all like revenge porn that was being distributed. Who knows? One-on-ones are a normal thing that doesn't make people friends. Tyler literally commented on how the news wanted to blame trans people. Lol. Wait, what is this? New York Times. After he murdered Charlie Kirk, the killer told his friends on Discord he heard the ammo had something about trans stuff on it. Robinson was watching the FBI try to pin it on the trans community instead of focusing on locating him. Wait, what? More obsessive. Wait, what the hell? Around the time, several news outlets reported ammunition found near a rifle at the scene included engravings referencing transgender ideology. The truth ultimately was that the engravings included the phrase, "Hey, fascist, catch," as well as lyrics from an anti-fascist Italian song and a reference to a sexual meme about a bulge. But at the time, before the exact phrasing of the engravings was publicly known, the suspect sent messages that suggested he was closely following the news. I heard the ammo had some about trans stuff on it, but they aren't releasing the photos or exact quotes, he wrote. He added, and also the claim wasn't backed by the official FBI, just some dude in a briefing room. A few minutes later, he joked, "I'm actually Charlie Kirk. Wanted to get out of politics, so I faked my death so I can live out my dream life in Kansas." Oh my God. Dude, we are living in such a weird time, man. In terms of like being extremely online, in terms of like Twitter and online becoming a part of real life, like this is one of those very strange moments, okay? I don't know why Discord was like saying this dude wasn't on our app. I don't know. He wasn't communicating on our app or whatever. I don't know what the hell's going on as well. The New York Times article has the full messages. They joked about avoiding McDonald's too because that's how Luigi got caught. Yeah. So I'll get started on one aspect of this story that I briefly talked about, but obviously I wasn't, like, when they first found the shooter, I wasn't live, right? When they first found the shooter, when they first apprehended the shooter, I wasn't live. But a lot of other people were covering it, and they were making up their minds on like what this ideological profile was. I think it was too soon to tell, but you know, my early assessment was looking at like the meme profile, which is a stupid thing to actually say out loud when talking about mass shooters. But God damn it, unfortunately, that is a thing that we have to do. Looking at the mimetic profile of the shooter and the things that the shooter wanted to communicate, I basically said, look, it's too soon to tell the ideological background, but it's like very obvious that he has like a right-wing family, Mormon family, all this stuff. You know, some family members are connected to the military. Early on, they thought his dad was like law enforcement, and they found out that wasn't the case. That's whatever. But like, he clearly was a white kid from like a real ass American Utah family, right? And even Governor Cox had some statements about this. Even Governor Cox himself was like, oh, I was praying that he wasn't one of us. I hoped it was like some Muslim transgender guy from, you know, Idaho or whatever, or from not from this country. And it turns out he's one of us. And I saw that and I was like, that's a weird thing to say out loud, buddy. That's a weird thing to say out loud, but we are living in increasingly weird times. So I guess it's fine that you're just saying it. Okay. Like, you know how people will always say, like, because of the unlimited violence that marginalized populations are subjected to, many of you have probably had that moment where you see like a mass shooting or something and you're like, oh my God, I hope the shooter isn't like trans or black or brown or undocumented or something like that, you know, because like, you know what is yet to come. Well, these guys are now doing the reverse of that, because they want to do more violence, it seems. So they're like, oh, every time there's a shooter, even though most of the time it's like a white dude, and this time it was a white dude as well, I was praying it wasn't one of ours, you know? I was praying it wasn't one of ours. And it's like, it's not like it changes anything if it's a white guy who's a right-winger. They've done most of the shootings. And it seems like the right collectively have decided a lot of these guys are responsible for the shooting, so let's just fucking turn around and imagine that the shooter is a trans leftist every time, right? And it's crazy. Because, like, the impact is not the same, you know what I mean? There's not, like there's no legislation to, like, ban young white boys who are a little quirked up on the internet when there's another young white boy who is a little too quirked up who does a fucking mass shooting. That's not a thing. But God forbid, if anyone has like even been around a trans person, it seems, they're like, oh, we have to literally arrest and prosecute and criminalize every trans person in the country. Now, I watched so much. I watched the Nancy Mace and the Republicans basically go from, we have to kill everybody immediately. We have to kill anyone that's ever been like, maybe we shouldn't be mean to gay people because they're all radical transgender Antifa leftists who are doing unlimited violence, the white Christians or whatever, to then turn around and be like, oh no, he was one of our boys again. Oh well, pray for his soul. Pray for his lost soul. And then they turned around and they were like, he went to a Mormon university for one semester, and that's where he got hit with the fucking transgender woke ray, right? And then everyone was like, dog, he took one fucking semester and didn't even have any in-person classes, and then left to go work for to go to a technical school, right? Like, what are we talking about? This person's background is so perfectly like right-wing in the way that these guys have designed the world. They just couldn't figure that route as well. But now they're saying it's actually a transgender roommate, that he was radicalized by a transgender. Like, it has to be a trans person, it seems, for these guys. Like, they're I don't know what will happen. I do know that because violence is such a permanent part of American politics, which I wrote about on the New York Times, by the way, we're going to be talking about that in a second. It's an inevitability that these things will continue to happen unless, in the absence of any sort of like serious legislation to stop, gun violence. It is. It has happened every other week, and it will most likely, unfortunately, continue to happen. And I guess in the next phase here is going to be like, was the shooter ever around a trans person at all? Like, we have to look through the next school shooter. If they've even been in the direction, if they've even looked in the direction of a trans person, that's probably how they got radicalized. Like, that's where we're at now. Like, these people are trying to say like, oh, you were roommates with a trans person, I think, and therefore that's the reason why you did a mass shooting. Like, it's just so fucking insane. And what's extra messed up, people are like, the media is dropping the ball in spectacular fashion. So I don't even know. I don't even know what to say. Everything is wrong. Everything is busted. Everyone is angry. I guess like the only thing I'm hoping for, and I said this like the first couple of days, is, maybe these guys will just focus on the burger aspect of things, and we'll just like get it out of their system by being like, we're going to cancel a bunch of people. We're going to cancel a bunch of people on the left that we are claiming is, responsible for the death of Charlie Kirk. And then they'll turn around and they won't engage in acts of violence or something like that. Hopefully. What is this viral tweet about you? I think I saw this. I saw this one, yeah. If, God forbid, a leftist like Hasan Parker were killed, a lot of centrist Dems wouldn't even publicly mourn him. The idea that any GOP governor would fly flags at half-mast for him like Dems, like Dem Govs or for Kirk is beyond laughable. That's the imbalance we have in this country. Anyway, I mean, it's true. His grandma was upset that people call him left-wing. I know, I saw that too. Yeah, that was also crazy. His grandmother was more upset at the fact that they were calling him a leftist than at the fact that he had shot Charlie Kirk. Like, she was like, listen, shooting high-profile figures is something that I'm, not too fond of, but I can understand it. But do not say he did it because of radical transgender Antifa. We are a Republican family. That's what she said. It was crazy. Anyway, she probably doesn't know what the fuck's going on with the grandchild anyway. So, like, there's so much, like, secondary secondhand, third hand, fourth hand, like, totally irrelevant information that people run with and then try to retract after the fact. Also, this person's tweet that went viral, this person sucks so much ass. Fuck this guy. I don't like Hasan Piker, but if he died tomorrow, Fox News would be celebrating Trump and post a shitty AI meme celebrating his death on Truth Social. This dumb fuck, literally, this Destiny dick riding piece of shit once famously said Donald Trump should deport Hasan because I don't like him. Like, so he's just farming, okay? Don't get it twisted. That motherfucker's just farming. Anyway. I don't like people invoking your name in this discourse, even if it's hypotheticals. I know. I don't like it either, but what are you going to do? Okay, so Joyce Carol O's defending you after you're quoting your New York Times article? Yeah. So, where was I? All right, so a lot has taken place. Let's get started. Even Moist Critical spreading misinformation that he's a leftist. Look, guys, everyone is spreading misinformation. And at a certain point, you have to realize, like, are people spreading misinformation if they're just, like, rehashing what high-profile legacy publishers are saying? Because high-profile legacy publishers are dropping the ball without doing the proper investigation. Without doing the proper investigation, they're just, like, moving forward with whatever sound bites they can get. And one thing that's actually interesting in this process is, like, no matter how biased the police are, no matter how incompetent the police are, even cops, detectives, when they're setting up a shooter profile to figure out an ideological motive for a suspect in the aftermath of a situation like this, they will go to friends, right? They will go to the friends of the shooter and they will go to the family of the shooter, but they won't actually move on with that as like key pieces of evidence until they fully fleshed out a psychographic profile for the shooter. The media, on the other hand, is so horny to not get outflanked by the likes of, I don't know, Steven Crowder or whatever, that they are deciding that some random fucking neighbor actually can give us a convincing case on who this person is, right? Oh, we went to a friend. The friend called him a leftist. And then they retract the article and they go, okay, maybe the friend didn't know what the fuck he was talking about. He's just like talking out of his ass. So this is what's really annoying about it, where I cannot even fault the likes of, I don't know, Moist Critical for going along with what he is seeing in the news and then responding to it. Having said that, however, like I said, given what I know about like right-wing meme profiles with shooters, the last one being the Minneapolis church shooter that we talked about. If you remember, the Minneapolis church shooter was a far-right neo-Nazi that was most likely radicalized in one of these Telegram groups, not dissimilar to the Colorado school shooter that actually shot up his school an hour after Charlie Kirk was shot and killed at UVU. And yet, the reason why I'm bringing that one up is because people said, oh, that's transgender radical Antifa. That's a transgender radical Antifa shooter. And they still are saying that. That wasn't the case. And the reason why I say that wasn't the case is because that shooter in Minneapolis very clearly showcased a meme profile that is consistent with far-right neo-Nazi, extremely nihilistic, esoteric neo-Nazi school shooters and mass shooters in general. And what I mean by that is like he was venerating, Anders Breivik and the Christchurch shooter, like all these different white nationalists and white supremacists. Whereas this shooter's memes did not reach that standard at all, which is why I said Tyler Robinson, Kirk's alleged shooter, came from a Mormon family in both law enforcement and the military, but I'm not so certain if he himself was right-wing. A lot of the memes posted on the casings are ironic or of the left variety, different than previous far-right shooters. It's too soon to tell, but this is important to understand. As well, I said, I think people need to understand that there's a massive online far-right wing community that hated Charlie Kirk. This is something that I've brought up as well. Nick Fuentes, contrary to popular opinion, contrary to how he's presenting himself right now, Nick Fuentes has actually said infinitely more violent shit about Charlie Kirk than I ever have. Okay? So it's not like I had a more cordial relationship with Charlie Kirk as opposed to Nick Fuentes. That is the reality. That is the irony, because everyone in the far right and everyone in the right wing thinks I'm responsible for this, and they keep saying I'm the one who's responsible for this. Fuck you, Hasan, you did this. Meanwhile, if you look back at his statements, Nick Fuentes' statements about Charlie Kirk, you will see like he talked about fucking doing an endless amount of violence to him and also Turning Point USA and whatnot. So they have been hunting and pursuing Charlie Kirk for quite a while, as a matter of fact. So, but that doesn't really matter in this moment, because like everyone on the right is very clearly trying to get together and use this as an opportunity to attack their ideological opposition, their enemies. They're using this as an opportunity to say like, no, it's the left that's hateful and all this stuff. So that's what's so crazy about this entire situation too, because like as far as I can remember, I don't think I've ever said anything that's remotely as violent about Charlie Kirk as like Nick Fuentes has. I mean, here's some choice ones, I think. I mean, there's a lot of metaphor that he uses as well, to be fair, and metaphors are things that I've used as well in the past, not directionally against like Charlie Kirk or anybody like that, but those metaphors are obviously being used currently in clips that are completely clipped out of context to make it seem as though I was like advocating for violence against the right or whatever the fuck, which is yet another story that I'm going to be covering as well. But ultimately, I'm still of the mindset that it's like entirely too early. But one thing I have noticed is, and I suspect, I've noticed the tendency of the right to basically go along with misinformation no matter who's doing it, right? What I mean by that is I saw a fuck ton of liberal accounts posting the shooters like a photoshopped t-shirt of the shooter wearing like a Trump shirt that's not real. I saw so many people immediately go, this is a groiper, this is a groiper, this is a groiper. And I wasn't online at the time. And, I didn't have the opportunity to like seriously go back and forth on this stuff at the time. I wasn't so certain. There were people saying he was a DSA guy. I knew that that wasn't real. They just like doxed another random DSA guy, which was really fucked up, but you know, classic. But a lot of people, and I think what's more interesting is that a lot of right-wingers, I think when they saw the shooter, also decided he might be right-wing. What do I mean by this? Because once they found out the demographic background, once they found out his like family, his family history, the right toned down the calls for civil war and decided we got to lower the temperature, decided we got to pray for this young boy's soul, this young boy's heart. That was insane because I felt like I got slapped up, like I got whiplash from how quickly they went from we have to kill every leftist person because this was very obviously a transgender Antifa leftist to we have to save this boy's soul by praying for him. And that led me to believe that maybe they think he's right wing. And I don't know if it's because they have more information that I was not privy to, right? Here's the Nancy Mace tweet compilation. That's the classic one that everyone is obviously pointing to. Time to bring back the death penalty. Enough is enough. Representative Nancy Mace comments on Charlie Kirk's killer allegedly being pro T-word. And then after the background of the shooter is found, we know Charlie Kirk would want us to pray for such an evil and lost individual like Tyler Robinson to find Jesus Christ. We will try to do the same. We truly believe if Tyler Robinson had ever sat down from Charlie, the great debater, the man of faith and grace he was, Tyler wouldn't have pulled the trigger. Like, it's insane. It's insane. They didn't even hide it. They just straight up went from this is a radical Antifa transgender, and we need to kill all of them to like, we have to pray for this young boy's soul. So I think it's like a combination of different factors. One, it's because not only was he white, but he was a corn-fed white boy. You know what I mean? He was a real ass like Mormon Utah boy. Okay. And I do think that these guys, unironically, I never thought this until this moment, but I really do think that a lot of right-wingers just straight up respond to race. Okay. I think that's it. Like when they see someone who is not just like white, but also not white in a spicy way where like they got a septum ring and fucking, I don't know, a hammer and sickle tattoo, but like just straight up, if you are like a white boy from a Republican family, they go, oh no, that's one of us. That's, you know, it's obviously that this person was not like a leftist. Like that's the way they reacted to it, even if there wasn't enough evidence to suggest it at the time. And I think the other reason is because they saw all the Groyper stuff. They saw all the people being like, oh, this guy's a right winger. He voted for, or he's a registered Republican. He gave money to the Republicans, which is fake, by the way. That's a totally different Tyler Robinson, which again, Tyler Robinson is the most like, if you were to point to like the most average Utah boy, I would literally build out a profile of Tyler Robinson, right? Republican. It's like John Smith, you know, Tyler Robinson, white boy, went to college for one semester, dropped out, didn't pursue it, and went back and got like an apprenticeship. Went to a technical school. Like he did the most right-wing shit that you could possibly do. Not saying that like anyone that goes to a technical school is right-wing, but like that is how the right has presented the best possible future. You come from a good family. Your family is always there for you. And then you don't go to college because college makes you woke and gay, and you get an apprenticeship instead, right? Like you go to a technical school, you get an apprenticeship, you work a real job, an honest job, right? None of this like fake gay vaccine related college jobs. Like he did all of that. He's a gun pervert, family of gun perverts since 8 years old. He's been like, you know, shooting guns and whatnot. So I think like when they saw all of that stuff, they went, oh, this is probably one of our guys. As I also mentioned, like Governor Cox said, they decided, oh yeah, no, we should maybe dial it back a little bit. Having said that, that didn't stop Ben Shapiro from continuing to pursue this stuff, even though what he was operating off of was like obviously now retracted newspaper piece. I think it was on The Guardian. And what's interesting is he got owned by fucking Bill Maher of all people. And I feel like if you're getting owned by Bill Maher, you should just throw in, you should throw the towel. You should throw in the towel. You should never try to debate ever again. Because Bill Maher is like, I mean, he's not particularly intelligent individual. He's not, I mean, getting dunked on by Bill Maher is like pretty humiliating, I think.
It's a shooting at a synagogue. It is very likely to be either a white supremacist or a radical Muslim. If it is a shooting of a Republican politician, it is very likely to be a trans Antifa Marxist shooter.
That is just not.
That's just insane to say. Like, dog, none of those fucking, like, that was not the case. That did not happen. Thomas Crooks is not like a radical transgender Antifa guy. He was a registered Republican, man. Thomas Crooks was a registered Republican. He was wearing like a GunTuber merch. Like, sometimes you got to understand, like, there is just some fucking quote unquote apolitical right adjacent people that just decide, I'm going to make a name for myself by shooting the president. It's insane. I know it doesn't make sense, but it's just not the case.
We don't know what this kid is.
We do know this kid was of the left. We do know that.
We do know what?
That this kid was of the political left. That is according to contemporaneous reporting from The Guardian as well as Tablet Magazine today.
It's 2 days out. We don't know shit, Ben.
But
we don't know shit. They never do. The internet is undefeated in getting it wrong to begin with.
It's not about the internet.
He's fucking right. And The Guardian actually retracted that article. Unironically, I cannot believe Bill Maher is right. I cannot believe I'm saying this. Bill Maher is right. Ben Shapiro is so stupid and so professionally wrong that he made the most annoying, professionally stupid and wrong guy look good in comparison. How is that possible? How is that even possible, man? It's crazy, okay? There should be no comeback from this. If Bill Maher dunks on you, it's over.
About the actual reporting by mainstream accepted. The Guardian is not a right-wing.
Here's what we heard. Here's what I was told so far, and I'll tell you what was wrong. First, I heard he's a registered Republican. Not true. Okay. Then he was a donor to Trump. Not true. His father works in the sheriff's office. Not true. There was a picture of him wearing a pro-Trump shirt. Not true. Member of the Democratic Socialists of America. Not true. We don't know what he is.
Well,
how are you so sure he's of the left? Now, I agree when you write on a bullet, what did he write on the bullet? Catch this
fascist, which is also a gamer thing.
Okay, but now I'm hearing he may have been part of that group for whom Charlie Kirk was not right-wing enough.
You mean the Groypers, yes. I mean, so that would...
You're sure he's not that?
So this is a cooking right here. This is a cooking because Ben hates the Groypers. Ben hates the Groypers almost as much as he hates the left for obvious reasons. The Groypers are anti-Semitic. They're anti-Israel and also anti-Semitic, which, of course, anti-Semitism in that regard is not something that Ben Shapiro actually takes issue with. It's the anti-Israel sentiment, as I've said time and time again. This is something that Ben himself has also voluntarily revealed, like when talking about Ann Coulter, and on numerous other occasions, Ben has quite literally been like, anti-Semitism is fine as long as you're pro-Israel. Like, he's openly said it. And the Groypers have obviously like stalked him as well, including Nick Fuentes. I do find it really interesting that like Groypers are becoming mainstream though. Like, they're now literally talking about this shit on television. Like, my mom asked me what a Groyper is. My mom, I was like, it's over. It's done. When moms are asking about what the fuck a Groyper is, it is clearly the narrative that this might be a far-right neo-Nazi shooter, regardless of whether it's true or not. And I'm not saying that that is the case. Make no mistake. I'm saying it's too soon to tell. But clearly, when moms are asking about what the fuck a Groyper is, like, clearly that is in normie circles. Like, I think on Facebook and all over the internet, like it just blew up. It blew up as like a potential for the shooter being like a far right guy. And what's interesting about it is I've never experienced that before. I've never experienced like misinformation or at least like faulty information spreading in the left direction like this in the aftermath of a shooting. But it was actually weird to see so many right-wingers also go along with that and like recalculate their messaging out of the fear that this might be a fucking Groyper. Isn't that crazy? Like, I think right-wingers are so susceptible to misinformation that they're more susceptible to misinformation than real, accurate, truthful assessment and truthful analysis, that if you just make stuff up, they're more inclined to believe it. If you just go, hey man, let's dial it back real quick. Let's wait a couple days before we figure out exactly the ideological profile of this person. He's alive, you know, there will be interrogations and whatnot. Nope. As long as you lie in either direction, you can lie in the left direction, you can lie in the right direction. Right-wingers will jump on board, it seems. Which is crazy. But yeah, it was very interesting. This TikTok explains the memes on the bullets. Yeah, this is my goat. I like this guy a lot. Aiden, etc. He's a reporter. He talks about like culture and stuff, like far right radicalization networks online quite a bit. Here's his piece on the memes on the bullet casings for the shooter. We'll look at that. What is this breaking? It's being reported that 6 transgenders had advanced knowledge of Charlie Kirk's assassination. What the fuck? What does that even mean, bro? What does that even fucking mean, bro? Breaking news. Remember what I said about Donald Trump saying everything's transgender and then people understand it? That's what this is now. You can just put transgender in anything, in any context, in any situation. You can just apply transgender to it and people will fucking go, that's right, that's probably the case. We have to do something. Like, the right is so easily fucking duped on this shit. Yeah, like, they went, the shooter is trans. Okay, the bullets were trans. Okay, the roommate is trans. Like, what the fuck? How could people not realize this is a psychotic way to approach the situation? What if the shooter wanted to be trans? You never know, like, ahead of time. When all else fails, they just lie and they go along with that lie. It just doesn't make any sense. There's like a 90% chance that all trans people found out by now that Charlie is dead. Yeah. Everybody knows transgender people are magical people. They just like fucking communicate with one another through telepathy, and they were sending out a beacon. It's just like when you start taking HRT, you just have this like these additional powers. You're a really good swimmer too. It's like it gives you swimming powers, okay? It gives you weightlifting powers, and it also gives you the power to precog assassinations ahead of time. That's just how it is. Once you get on that HRT, bro, it's crazy, okay? Like, I'm joking about this shit, but like unironically, that is how it's coming across. Anyway, let me finish this Bill Maher dunk because he goes, well, don't you think he could be a groyper?
But now I'm hearing he may have been part of that group for whom Charlie Kirk was not right-wing enough.
You mean the groypers, yes. I mean, so that would...
That you're sure he's not that?
I'm not sure that he's not that.
A minute ago you were sure what he was.
Hold on, Bill. Hold on. Okay, because I've been...
You were.
That's it. You just got fucking destroyed by Bill Maher of all people, okay? By Billiard Jedediah Maher, dude. Come on. Anyway, here, let's look at the meme, the meme analysis of the casings and stuff. I'm gonna go pee real quick.
Charlie Kirk's life was engraved with a 12-year-old furry bashing meme. Notice his bulge, ooh woo, what's that? Which tells us an important thing. This assassination was a shitpost. That is the lens to analyze it through. Another of the casings references a video game, Helldivers 2, and a specific bomb that you could send on your enemies in the game with the command up, right, down, down, down. This command line sort of became a meme in image boards where it would be deployed to kind of represent, ending an argument, but almost more so as just like, if you know, you know. And that sort of signals the in-group there. Another of the 4 casings references Bella Ciao, which is an Italian anti-fascist anthem from the World War II era that has stuck around and remained very popular online. It's been used both in left and right-wing political contexts, and it's used in a lot of video games. And then the 4th and final shell casing was engraved with, if you're reading this, you're gay, LMAO. This was a shitpost. It was designed to be maximally disruptive and incomprehensible, cloaked in layer upon layer of irony so that nobody would know what he really meant unless they were our guy. This performs a kind of nihilism that plays really, really well on particular image boards and Discord servers where this guy spent most of his life. And I say most of his life because that furry meme is from 2013. He was 10 years old when it was first posted and became popular. He, like you and I, grew up alongside this part of the internet that trickled out through the other platforms that we went on and has actually informed and driven a lot of our politics. Half of the administration right now is content creators, and all of the guys who are wearing masks going out on these deportation raids, the guys who are staffers of Republican members of Congress in these different executive departments, the guys who are 19 years old called in by Elon to Doge things, these are all Reddit kids. These are all guys who were on 4chan in 2013, laughing at that furry meme. Now, the question everybody's asking is, was this kid a groiper? And the question everybody's parents are asking is, what is a groiper? So groipers are the most extreme fringe of this kind of image board nihilistic culture that I'm talking about. They're led by Nick Fuentes, who is a content creator and a streamer, and they really are about transgressing any boundary that exists. They are like explicitly white nationalists, really bad, horrible people. The name groiper originates from this variant of Pepe the Frog, which comes about in the late 2010s, and these guys adopt it as a kind of collective self-portrait.
Great breakdown, by the way.
They make it their profile picture, they make it their moniker. There was the Groiper War of 2019, in which Nick Fuentes and his people trolled Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA, showing up at these debate events and asking questions that would...
Like, it feels embarrassing to know all of this, but I guess it's gotten to a point where, like, you kind of have to know this stuff now, because like a lot of this like extremely online shit is having an impact in the real world. Like, I don't know how to describe it beyond like, I knew about all this shit. Most of you know about all this shit. I spent most of my political career talking about this stuff as well. And it's just crazy that like, I feel almost hypocritical telling you to be normal and not be so fucking online, and consistently telling you that like the bus driver test should be applied here. Like, can you describe the situation to a bus driver in 60 seconds in a convincing manner? And now I'm realizing like we might need to explain all this to the bus driver. The bus driver test might not be that valuable or reliable any longer. Because like I talk about Telegram quite a bit. I talk about groipers. Telegram is like the newer version of this. It's even more decentralized, it's even more insane, it's even more nihilistic and more violent. And I've covered that stuff extensively as well, especially in the past month. But if you think the groiper stuff basically is the end of this depravity, it's not. Like, I would say you got Reddit, you got 4chan, you got 8chan, you got groipers, and then you have the Terrorgram, which is even crazier than that, right? Like Order of Nine Angles and all those other different groups, right? It gets, and the further you go down that rabbit hole, the darker things get, the more cultish things get, and the more violent things get. But it's wonderful that every child basically has access to this unlimited fresh hell of online radicalization and have basically grown up with this kind of shit.
Push Kirk to say things that were even more extreme than Kirk was already saying. So where Charlie Kirk took like one step toward these kind of white or Christian nationalist ideas, the groipers took 2 steps. They demanded that he make the subtext text. One post people have been citing as proof of the groiper hypothesis is this one from his mother's Facebook that shows...
Like, I don't think this is enough. I don't think this is enough to indicate that he's a groiper, I'll be honest. And I said that to Jason Palladino as well. Fantastic reporter who was of the mind that this was like definitely a groiper. And I basically said... Because he posted that, but that's a Gopnik. That's just a Gopnik meme. Like, everyone has seen that. That's almost like a universal thing. The Slav Squad is not necessarily just a groiper thing, right? Because he said, feel like you don't do this unless you're in some right-wing nihilistic brain-rotted space. I say, yeah, I saw that as well. I don't know how to weigh that over the Chowbella, though. Like, that could be Gopnik posting, which is across the political spectrum. Need more info. Groipers usually hail previous shooters and have had way more aggressive slogans they use to signal. And that's what I mean. Like, if this was a far-right, this was like convincingly a far-right figure and was like shooting Charlie because he was frustrated that he wasn't like far-right enough or whatever, I think you would see a clearer indication of that. You would see a clearer indication of that because these guys don't hide their perspective. Sometimes they'll troll and they'll masquerade as like, they'll use leftist terms. Even Ciao Bella could be utilized by like Groypers or whatever, but like there would be more of an indication of their far right leanings somewhere, right? So that's why I'm saying still right now that it's too soon to tell. I haven't been able to build a proper psychographic profile for the shooter and can convincingly tell you like what the most likely radicalization pipeline was for this person. What I have found, though, and this is something that I saw with Luigi Mangione as well, is that we are now in the age of shooters that are, how do I put this? With shooters with like promising careers, like upstarts, like people who have really good GPAs, people who might have even played sports. You know what I mean? Like that's usually not the expectation. Like oftentimes when you see someone who violates the social contract in such a severe way, when you look to their background, it's usually never a person with like a prospect, with a promising career ahead of themselves, or with successful friendships and whatnot. It's usually like a socially isolated guy who's been brain poisoned by spending too much time online, right? They're oftentimes very like antisocial people. So I do think that with Luigi Mangione and with this shooter as well, when you look at their background, when you look at their trajectory, that actually doesn't fit the previous shooters and their psychographic profile at all. And that's kind of interesting. I would say that says something, right? A Gen Z colleague described to me black pill mindset to me in a way I'd never heard before. For younger kids today, especially men, there's a pressure to get rich at any cost or get famous at any cost. They use irony and crude memes, the massive deep anxiety they feel. What stood out to this person was lol, nothing matters attitude, Kirk's assassin. Yeah, he was trying to be nonchalant while doing the most chalant thing. You know what I mean? Like there is an air of like, I don't even care about this, this thing that I'm doing. And it is also very interesting. What stood out to this person was lol, nothing matters attitude. Kirk's assassin tries so hard to project in his ironic bullet inscriptions. Like if you see this, you're gay, Lamau. Like that's political, but mostly stupid meme Halloween costumes and the gamer culture he was steeped in. His politics almost feels secondary. We're seeing an uptick in ironic phrases written on bullet casings, and manifestos are peppered with very online references meant to be read and understood not by the media, but by the shooter's online peers. They want to be remembered as the people who went for it. It speaks to an alienation that younger Americans, disproportionately men, try to heal not through therapy, but through online game communities, Discord, and validating themselves online. I mean, I think this is like a boomer assessment, but it's not entirely wrong. It's something that I have obviously noticed. There's a lot of shared experiences in these online spaces, like a desperate way to create a sense of community, something that I speak to all the time. All the way to like the most depraved corners of the internet, like the Kiwi Farms people who get together and engage in the act of what they call A-logging, autistic logging, or lolcowing a person with like significant mental health complications, like stalking them, gang stalking them almost professionally, and trying to ruin their lives professionally. And you get like a sense of community off of doing that, right? That is a thing that people do. And it is deeply, deeply antisocial. And obviously the antidote to that is developing interpersonal relationships in the real world. But I think that kind of community fostering creates a replacement that isn't a healthy alternative to developing a real relationship in the real world and being around normal human beings. But it's enticing enough that people don't even realize that there is something that is missing from their lives. So in that regard, this feeds into that isolation that I think people have. You know, that's definitely something that I have seen online quite a bit. And it's something that I try to push people away from in my community at the very least by forcing them and pushing them to engage in community organizing, labor organizing, and activism in general that forces them to go outside and be around other people and actually to talk to other people from a diverse ideological profile so that they can, learn how to be a human being. I'm fortunate enough that I'm 34 years old and I went through these experiences when I was growing up, and therefore I have this this foundation to build upon, so that even when I spend every waking moment online now, I still have this background. I still have this built-in understanding of the world and real world experiences. You mean protesting? Yes, protesting, activism of all different sorts, joining local organizations, things of that nature, playing pickup basketball, going to a public park. These are things that are incredibly important for every single person to stay grounded to the real world in some way by force in an increasingly online universe that we exist in. And I think the inverse of that is absolutely going to Discord circles and like going to splinter Discord servers and like increasingly isolating yourself from even people that you are, even people in a broader community that you might be a part of. And yeah, there's two different ways to go about it. And I feel like a lot of people choose the easier alternative, which is to be sheltered from any sort of counters under the guise of anonymity online, and increasingly engaging in more antisocial behavior like this. Okay, so, but the structural issues are obviously the lack of hope for a better future for many in Gen Z, and we're seeing that almost universally at this point. Like material conditions are deteriorating, and you see people react to that. You see younger generations react to that with protests, sometimes riots, and also these kinds of decentralized acts of violence. It's a truly terrifying predicament. So it also speaks to the lack of hope, but about the future, it's hard to say if these people even have coherent left-right ideologies. So much is being overridden. No, I think they do. They have a modified version of left-right ideologies, but there's still a left ideological leaning or a right ideological leaning. It's just harder to parse through and harder to pick up on, given that like all the irony poisoned posturing makes it very difficult for boomers and very difficult for people who don't speak this kind of language to truly comprehend. And that's where we're at with this shooter as well. I think it's not entirely wrong, but there's an uptick of white male shooters from middle or high income families with careers ahead of them, noticing their futures are fucked and noticing systemic discrimination below them and throwing their future away to release the tensions as the political system is caving. I think it's a fair assessment. At the same time, they're stewing in social media ecosystem where algorithms feed them a constant stream of rage bait. And so they form parasocial hatreds. As the shooter's family said, he'd only become political recently and seemed to fixate on Charlie Kirk's viral content. What Governor Cox said is broadly right. Social media is cancer. When coupled with the social alienation epidemic we're seeing in America, it's convincing people that reality is something less than real. If you're never going to be rich, why not be infamous? The traditional venue for that was school shootings, but those have become so commonplace now that the shooters barely register in our media coverage. We're numb to it. What gets headlines now? Political shootings. Even better if your message is confusing for the normies. I mean, okay, the thread unwinds at this point a little bit because it's not just social media. I think social media is perfectly fine as a tool for organizing, as a tool for connecting with other people, as a tool for information dissemination. But there also needs to be a healthy balance there also needs to be a healthy connection to the real world, to real human beings that you know, whether it be your family members, whether it be your friends, whether it be your coworkers. And I think that is a part of the problem. Anyway, the rest of it is the thread unwinds a little bit there, but let's go back to the meme profiles. Like I said, I'm not so certain that this person was a groyper or someone of the ideological left background at all. But let's continue.
As a meme for Halloween, it seems like the meme is Gopnik Pepe, which is a 4chan meme to my understanding. But I don't quite associate it with Poll, which is like the political board on 4chan that most people are talking about it. I see it more as like a K meme and sort of like a rare Pepe type thing. But again, like many Pepe or groyper memes, the core of this is it's a lonely male figure in sort of an immiserated landscape looking sad. And that's part of the story I wish more people were talking about. What's driving our political violence isn't just polarization, where one side is getting more radical and kind of undermining democracy, nor is it algorithms, like some have said, that are like pickling the brains of young people. It is that feeling, which these Pepe memes represent, of you're always going to be alone, you're never going to have a future, and you're never going to have a voice. And that feeling, which is by no means rare or unusual in our society today, collides with a particular set of circumstances. This long entrenched nihilistic online tradition, the ready availability of firearms, and the increasing derangement of mainstream discourse, this ambient sense of like tension and volatility that exists in the air to produce stuff like this. And we're going to see more and more of it unless those root causes are addressed and unless we find a way to offer a better future to people.
I do agree with the overall point, and I obviously talked about it as well. So I'm just going to quickly go through the New York Times op-ed that I wrote because I sought to address some of these issues using the format that was given to me. Obviously, it got there was a lot of editorial changes that were made in the process. This is the op-ed that I wrote. And then there's also another interview that I conducted. So this is two different parts of the New York Times. But we'll start out with the op-ed. Op-ed title, I was supposed to debate Charlie Kirk. Here's what I would have said. Mr. Piker hosts a streaming show on the Twitch platform covering politics and pop culture. Okay? In less than 2 weeks, I was supposed to debate Charlie Kirk. The event was scheduled for September 25th at Dartmouth College, and it was meant to be a wide-ranging conversation about American politics focused on the views of young voters. But on Wednesday, tragedy intervened. The entire country now knows the story. Mr. Kirk was fatally shot while speaking at a university campus in Utah. Late Thursday night, an arrest was made in the case. I found out that Mr. Kirk had been killed while I was live streaming to my audience on Twitch, as I do nearly every day. While I am exposed to daily images of incredible horror, particularly those of atrocities taking place in Gaza, I was still shocked by the images from Utah. What shocked me was not merely the graphic nature of what took place. It was the horror of seeing someone whom I know, not a friend or an ally, but a human being I know personally and have debated before, fall victim to what clearly seems to be a rising tide of political violence. Even before knowing exactly why Mr. Kirk was killed, I think there are some disturbing and necessary insights that can be drawn from his horrible death. Ideas that affect the way many of my viewers and many of the people who followed Mr. Kirk would see the world. The first of these insights is hardly new. The United States has both very loose gun laws and more violent gun deaths per capita than any other developed nation in the world. And while shootings occur most anywhere, campuses can be especially deadly. As news broke that Mr. Kirk was shot at Utah Valley University, there was a near simultaneous tragedy at a high school in small town Colorado, where a 16-year-old shot two fellow students. There have been 47 school shootings this year. Charlie Kirk's was the 46th, and the Colorado shooting was the 47th. Though it may ultimately prove correct to classify Mr. Kirk's death as a tectonic political murder, the shooting was not itself uncommon or extraordinary. The victim was. The second idea is more general and is connected to perhaps why these kinds of killings happen in the first place. Violence almost never originates in a vacuum, and the killing of a high-profile political content creator, regardless of why it happened, speaks to a breakdown in our social order. Mr. Kirk was fond of talking about the ways that urban life has decayed in America, particularly in places like his native Chicago area. In fact, his last words included answering a question about the frequency of mass shootings with a question of his own about whether gang violence counted in that discussion. Any answer about civic decline in America also has to include a discussion about the failure of our political and economic establishment to reconcile with social challenges that have touched every place and aspect of American life. Too many examples of the deadly gun violence we see today are, it seems to me, indicative of this decline. The social challenges include rising rents and homelessness, the destruction caused by climate change, titanic levels of inequality, and too many others to name here. Our capitalist way of life, always accumulating, never evening out, leaves more and more people to deal with these problems on their own. This produces feelings of isolation and resentment as material conditions worsen. And considering that our society is swamped by, and yet somehow stitched together by, a 24/7 news cycle that too often feeds this resentment, It is little wonder that a country of stressed out gun owners would have so many grim, needless gun deaths. This connects to my final idea. Americans inhabit a culture of violence to which we have become habitually desensitized. There is a connection between our culture of violence and American foreign policy. Over time, our culture of violence has targeted people around the world, anywhere from Cuba to Iraq, people who serve as literal targets for American weapons and bombs, absorbing what I think of as Americans' excess capacity for violence. For years now, American politics has taken on an increasingly punitive flavor. During the George W. Bush era, Arabs and Muslims were, and remain, singled out for suspicion. Their civil rights were routinely violated as we embarked on fresh wars against Arab and Muslim countries, and we regarded lives in those countries as less precious than our own. I call it the process of collateralization, where we look to the children in Gaza, for example, and we just, even if we are naysayers, even if we actually find Israel's actions to be abhorrent, deep down inside of our consciousness, we still see that as like unfortunate byproducts of a necessary way in which the world exists, right? Collateral damage. We almost turn it into a natural disaster. He reads this article every time I tune in, Lamau. I wrote this article recently, and this is the first time I'm reading it. But I have repeated a lot of these things, so yes. So you have heard me say these things before. That's just usually how it goes. It's just me putting pen to paper, you know? The Barack Obama years were not so much a correction as a continuity, with drone strikes, night raids, and forever war. What followed in President Trump's first term and in Joe Biden's administration was still more of the same. Extreme rhetoric about designated American enemies combined with aggressive sanctions and secret operations aimed at destabilizing entire countries. A foreign policy organized around punishing and killing our supposedly sworn enemies, diplomacy be damned, conveys the terrible message that we can only kill and maim our way to achieving the world we want to live in. I fear that this is the most evident in America's ironclad support for Israel. The genocide in Gaza has claimed tens of thousands of innocent lives. Meanwhile, Israel has carried out brazen assassinations and attempted assassinations in Iran, Qatar, Lebanon, and Yemen, backed up by Mr. Trump and previously by Mr. Biden. Our government's virtually unyielding support for Israel tells a scary story about the country we live in. It suggests that merely because we designate them as such, American enemies can be marked for death. Whether such rivals pose a legitimate threat, the fire and fury of our military and our allies have clearly become the default answers for how we deal with a world whose interests don't align with our own. Pulling a gun or launching a missile has become a part of our national character, a sad reduction of morality to the time it takes for fingers to pull the triggers. I would have liked to ask Mr. Kirk about all these things. He and I identified some of the same problems, but our views clashed about their causes and their potential solutions. Americans, especially younger Americans, feel a sense of growing hopelessness as so many of those in power refuse to listen to their struggles, economic or otherwise. One side, Democrats, offer mostly platitudes, while the other, epitomized by Mr. Trump, frequently takes advantage of people's resentments and redirects them to vulnerable communities. Mr. Kirk, an ally of Mr. Trump, was an expert of the latter. I wanted to debate Mr. Kirk, but because of a violent act, now I can't. So that was it. Does this have comments? I want to see the comments. How did you get the New York Times to publish this? They asked me. Do they not have comments on this? Don't think guest essays have comments? Oh, okay. So, they asked me, and I wanted to... they changed some stuff around structurally, and if you think that the tone it takes is a little bit drier than the way I would have spoken on these issues, that is because, yes, there is an editorial tone that they keep. No, they let me keep the genocide. Genocide is now officially a part of the New York Times style guide. You can say Israel is doing a genocide without like slapping on air quotes or whatever. I think basically the way this changed was after the New York Times had that Jewish Israeli Holocaust scholar write about how Israel is definitely doing a genocide. In the aftermath of that, I think they were like, it's done. Like, you can now say it openly. Yeah, they hyperlinked the word. Like, to show. I mean, look, they hyperlinked it to send it to. Yeah, I'm a genocide scholar. I know it when I see it. To Omar Bartov. So obviously, it's a little bit more restrained and a little bit more balanced, and takes a drier tone than I normally would use. But that is because it like when you write a guest essay, even when you write a guest essay for the New York Times, like they still obviously have their own editors go through it. I had 2 different rounds of editorial process. And then this is an interview that I did with Joe Bernstein of the New York Times as well, where I kind of like went through the same process as well. But I'm not going to go into that right now. The reason why I brought up the guest op-ed that I wrote for the New York Times is because like it basically is the easiest to understand summarization of how I connect like America's unlimited violence overseas back to unlimited violence in the domestic, and how we have become increasingly more desensitized to violence, and that's the reason why we are reacting the way that we are to all of these instances. Because people, I think, mostly don't understand. I don't think people understand, like boomers especially are like, what the fuck? Why are people celebrating death? And it's like, this is part of the reason, because so many people, regardless of their political background, are experiencing the same economic pressures, and they're also seeing unlimited violence born out of our actions as a consequence of foreign policy, but also our actions in domestic policy. And then they're going, okay, well, the value of life is worth nothing, I guess. You know? Look who else tried to say they were trans. Skull and Gate said Charlie Kirk is trans. That's crazy. On the back of this, I kept journalists and reporters having to explain how this works, how media works, the drama perverts. My guess is these outlets reached out to him. I doubt Hasan is farming them. Bro is farming hard. Yeah, I wonder why a bunch of mainstream outlets would reach out to a guy who is, fairly knowledgeable on like online radicalization, and is also directly connected both by his profession and also directly connected due to the fact that we were supposed to debate to the person who was just killed on the exact opposite side of the political spectrum. No, it must be that I'm paying for it. These guys are, their brains are underdeveloped, I think. They're just like, it didn't cook enough. Part of the reason why I wanted to write the op-ed was also because I feel like there's a lot of people offering their takes on the stuff, and some of it actually doesn't accurately convey Charlie Kirk's perspective at all. Just watch the YouTube video saying you didn't condemn the assassination commie. The 10-sec vids, I'm sure, are true and not out of context. Yeah. It makes no sense, to be fair. Yeah, we'll talk about Candace Owens as well in a second. Candace Owens, out of all of the demons on the right, was perhaps the only fucking person out there who actually was able to humanize Charlie Kirk and like very clearly is going through the stages of grief. I never thought I would say this because I've always seen Candace Owens as like a major grifter, but it does seem to me like, I mean, I know that they were friends, but it seems to me like they were really actually much closer to one another than any number of different people on the right that have been like, Charlie Kirk told me that he wants me to kill all of the leftists, actually. That's what his last text was, which is, of course, what Stephen Miller did, right? Stephen Miller went on Fox News and said this: the last message that Charlie Kirk gave to me before he joined his creator in heaven was, he said that we have to dismantle and take on the radical left organizations in this country. Was psycho. Just like absolute fucking psychopath, dude.
And let me tell you something I've not shared with anybody, but the last message that Charlie Kirk gave to me before he joined his creator in heaven was he said that we have to dismantle and take on the radical left organizations in this country that are fomenting violence. That was the last message that he sent me before that assassin stole him from all of us. And we are going to do that under President Trump's leadership. I don't care how. It could be a RICO charge, a conspiracy charge, conspiracy against the United States, insurrection, but we are going to do what it takes to dismantle the organizations and the entities that are fomenting riots, that are doxing.
Yeah. Last message Charlie Kirk sent to me was, I look good bald, actually, and I'm handsome, and I'm so good at speaking and writing Trump speeches, and that maybe Trump should make me Secretary of State instead of Marco Rubio. So we have to do that. Obviously, that's real. That's a real thing he told me. Also, what if that's what he said? Who gives a shit? What are you talking about? Like, this is another thing that I don't understand. It's like, okay, let's say this is real, which I don't. I don't believe this is real. I think he's just like trying to slam as much policy into this, this event that's supposed to be traumatic to galvanize the base into taking action and finding comfort in this kind of like vengeance quest and political persecution and political dissidence. You know, even if he traumatic for their side, man, calm down. Okay. Like, this is Fox News. It's traumatic for them. Have you talked to fucking boomers lately? They're like crying and shit. Okay. It's very obvious. It is very obvious to me that their goal, I mean, Trump spelled it out pretty much, but they are very obviously trying to get their audience on board, get the right, the MAGA base to be on board with political persecution of political dissidents. This is an anecdote from my life, but I know people that are diehard MAGA loyalists, okay? Not directly. And I know that when they saw that I was apprehended by Customs and Border Patrol, they did not like that. And that's part of the reason why the Department of Homeland Security even came out and was like, there is no political persecution of political dissidents whatsoever. Hasan Piker is lying for clicks. Okay? Remember, they didn't say that the detainment didn't take place. They openly copped to it. They admitted to that. They just took issue with the targeting of political dissidents. This is something that even the MAGA base, some of the most loyal in the MAGA base, still are not fully subscribed to, fully on board with. I know it sounds insane. To say this, because you're gonna be like, what? I see all these fucking people that are screaming bloody murder and they want political persecution. And it's true, there are plenty in the base that do want it, but there are still a lot of normies out there that are not, that don't have the same exact appetite to just like start rounding up the left or whoever the administration declares political dissidents, because like Americans do place a lot of emphasis and a lot of value on the First Amendment, a lot more than you would think. Regardless of how hypocritical they may be, they still believe that they have this underlying notion that like free speech means like, you know, you're going to hear stuff that you don't like and the government shouldn't intervene in this. It was also a big part of what Trump used to win the race. He said the Department of Justice was weaponized against him. They used to get mad about the whole, like, you know, Facebook is banning anti-vaxxer sentiment because directed by the Biden administration. Like, these are gripes that they have. So there is some appetite for political persecution of political dissidents, but the reason why they're really farming this is because they want that to be a unified front when they eventually engage in it.
That are trying to inspire terrorism and that are committing acts of wanton violence. It has to stop. And my message is to all of the domestic terrorists in this country spreading this evil hate. You want us to live in fear? We will not live in fear, but you will live in exile, because the power of law enforcement under President Trump's leadership will be used to find you, will be used to take away your money, take away your power, and if you've broken the law, to take away your freedom, Sean.
I want to say this is a Twitter issue, but honestly, Twitter is becoming more and more real life. It's an unfortunate reality. Like, I want to say Twitter is not real life, but we have motherfuckers in the administration that treat it as though it is. So I guess at that point, it is real life. You know what I mean? It's pretty crazy. There's more to talk about this stuff. I told you Twitter's real life. Twitter wasn't real life for the longest time, chatter. Unfortunately, it's becoming one now. Anyway.